Chucky's in love with the Stick to Wrestling podcast. He might be a grody old dude from the 60s who has to be reminded to comb his hair. He might even be in love with a chick with a monkey jaw. But this is his favorite wrestling podcast, and I think it's time you guys show him some respect. My name is John McAdam. I want to thank Ricky Lee Jones for writing that song in honor of her favorite wrestling podcast, and this is Stick to Wrestling. There are plenty of good podcasts out there, but there's only one wicked good podcast, and you're listening to it now. Give us 60 minutes, and we will give you a monumental podcast. On the line, I have my convivial co-host. Everything he says belongs on a coffee mug, Sean Goodwin. Sean, tell us about our Facebook group, please. Please.
One quick thing. One of these days, you're going to come on and give this intro in cuneiform, and I'm not going to know the difference. To the Facebook.
What's cuneiform?
It's from ancient Samaria, the original language, sir. It's the original. It's that stuff that all the little designs on the wall. It's called cuneiform.
That stuff they teach you at BU.
You learn stuff here too.
That's right.
So on the Facebook page, that's basically we get ideas from there. We've gotten guest hosts from there. We've gotten show ideas from there. It's a companion piece to the show. So if you listen to the show, you should be on the Facebook page. And everyone's friendly.
Companion piece is the best way to put it. If you like the show, this is a good companion piece, and it's a great freaking community. Come along and join. It doesn't cost anything.
It's like one of those PBS things that you get the companion piece to go with the documentary series, except we ain't charging the money for it.
And it's not complete without the companion piece. Also, John McAdam, am easily findable on Twitter. Just put in the name John McAdam. Look for the two guys hitting each other with chairs. I don't stick to wrestling on that. I'll talk baseball or whatever. But if you're looking for me, there I am. Sean, we have an outstanding podcast lined up on this fine day.
We already had an argument about this before the show.
I stopped. I said no.
Yes, you stopped and listened to the show. So let's go. I'm ready. So basically, our topic this week is the 1986 Great American Bash Tour, which as an idea, love it.
And there's so much to argue about.
I mean, there are a couple doozies here, though. But I mean, as a concept, it's just fantastic. I mean, you have kind of different matches each week. You basically, for those who don't know, the concept it's a pay-per-view quality card in a series of 16 cities, Ric Flair defenses in each one of them.
I believe he had 13 different challengers from Dusty Rhodes on down to Robert Gibson.
You would have different matchups. You had the nasty little Ronnie Garvin, Tully Blanchard feud in the middle of it. The Best of 7 series was, throughout there between Nikita and Magnum T.A. over the U.S. title. So there was, it was a big deal, and it kind of took up most of the summer, and it was a great idea. How did it do financially?
It didn't do particularly well financially. I know it would have taken something away from the glamour of it, but really, this at the end of the day, the crowds were more fitting for arenas than football stadiums. I mean, I went to the show in Philadelphia, took the long drive down, and I was pretty shocked at how few fans there were there. I mean, there was probably like 10, 11,000. And that doesn't look good in a football stadium.
There's no reason they could not have made money on this. What are they doing with the Gator Bowl?
Yeah.
Whose idea was that? I mean, that's not even why the Gator? I mean, if you're going to do a football stadium in Georgia or North Carolina, okay, I get that. Maybe like the Liberty Bowl or something. But what is the Gator Bowl? Yes, I know Liberty Bowl's in Memphis. But anyway. But, I mean,
no, the Liberty Bowl supposedly drew like less than 1,000.
Yeah. But I'm just saying, but why are you getting these stadiums from outside? If you go to if you look at every stadium that's reasonable, Fayetteville, North Carolina, sell out. Johnson City, sell out. You know, every stadium here, Freedom Hall, sell out. Greensboro, sell out. Every time they picked a stadium that was reasonable and not just insane, they did perfectly fine. They go to the Gator Bowl.
Yeah.
There's such a thing as supply and demand. If you know there are going to be tickets there at the last second, you're going to wait to the last second. You're going to have that choice. If there's a demand for a ticket, you're going to get it early, and that you're taking that choice away. So by overshooting your stadium size this badly, you're killing the whole vibe of the thing. I mean, when you have a hot crowd in Madison Square Garden, that's anything better than anything you're going to see at the Gator Bowl. And really, David Allen Coe. How much did they drop for David Allen Coe?
I have no idea, but I'm sure it was sizable. I mean, but counterpoint. Let's say now, just to put it in my perspective, I was in summer of 1986. I was a total magazine mark. I didn't know anything beyond what I was told on TV and what I was told through the after magazines. A year later, it was a completely different ball game because I started getting the Wrestling Observer newsletter. At the time, I just figured that, okay, Philadelphia didn't do that well, but the other cities must have. So you have the optics of, wow, these guys are having a summer full of shows in football stadiums. Wow, these guys are a big deal. They're as big as the WWF. That's what I thought. And I think it's important to create that illusion that you are major league.
Then put it in Georgia. If you're going to have a football stadium, put it in one of your strongholds. Don't put it in Tennessee or
Cincinnati.
The Gator Bowl. Stop it. I mean, okay, what's the stadium what was the stadium back then in Georgia?
Fulton County.
Put it in Fulton County.
They did. They didn't do that well.
Did they? Oh, okay. Well, I mean, but if then do it once. A riverfront stadium. Stop.
Yeah, I know.
There's no reason to be having stadium shows. I see what you're saying. Do it once. Do it twice. So, just in case something happens, they can't have expected to fill Riverfront Stadium, can they?
No. You want to hear my Riverfront Stadium story? And it's slightly wrestling related.
Amazed there is.
We are sticking to wrestling. I went to the Brian Pillman Memorial Show in May 2001, and I got to meet Dimitri Young, who was the first baseman for the Cincinnati Reds in backstage. I shake his hand. I'm like, wow, Dimitri Young. And he's like, we tell him we're going to the game tomorrow night. He's like, he grabs his cell phone. He goes, here, go to Will Call. Tickets are on me. I'm like, cool. So me and my friends go, and suddenly we notice that everyone in front of us is like moving away from, like moving backwards. And I look, and I swear to God, there are cockroaches everywhere. Somehow, like a giant nest of cockroaches got upset, and they were like coming up the stairs, and everyone was running for their lives. So there's my Riverfront Stadium story.
And then that story, you will not be surprised to hear that there are 3,900 paid in Riverfront Stadium. You could
not
have
including the roaches who watch for free.
You could have one person per section. I mean, it would be like one person per row. You could each have your own row. That is madness that they're booking in Riverfront Stadium. Okay, Fulton County, that doesn't go well. Okay, I understand that.
They just overestimated the popularity of their product.
And please, with the George Jones, didn't even show up. I mean, George showing up back then is a crapshoot.
I don't even remember. I do remember we were in Philadelphia, and it's Philadelphia, ladies and gentlemen, and they had two country acts. They had Delbert McClinton and Eli something, I think. And the first act, they do their set. No reaction. No one is there to see these people. I'm sorry, Dusty, I know you like them, but no one else does. Certainly no wrestling fans in Philadelphia liked them.
Who the hell is Jesse Coulter? I mean, that's fine. I understand there's a big market for this, and it's very popular. It's fantastic. But aren't you kind of if you're trying to go national, aren't you tipping your hand by doing this? By running out the Nashville network?
Well, yeah. I mean, by this point, everyone knew Crockett was going national. They had no choice. But the first band, Eli whatever, I think, does his set, gets off the stage. We wait about 30 minutes for them to switch over to the next band. And when the second band, when Delbert McClinton starts, I mean, he got booed as like people were rage booing this guy. And
I love
there's
Delbert,
a black
too.
guy sitting next to me. And the black guy, his face is turning red. He's like, "Get off the fucking stage! Get off the stage!" And everyone was like that. It was great.
It just seems so. If you just looked at these cards on paper and changed the stadiums to something reasonable, there's no reason this couldn't have made money. I mean, it's just the whole planning of it is just messed up.
You know what? I think it was one of those things. Coming in, it looked good. It sounded good. We're going to have, it's going to be a festival atmosphere. It's going to be our biggest show of the year, our WrestleMania. And again, they just overestimated the popularity of their product, B, the popularity of what the country acts would bring in. Like, Dusty likes country music and wrestling, so he kind of thought that everyone was going to like that. Not how it goes.
Waylon Jennings must have bought a house off this tour. My God.
But no joke. The wrestlers all thought that they were going to get rich off this tour. They were already thinking about the new house they were going to buy, the new cars they were going to buy, etc. And they came away disappointed.
Charlotte, North Carolina, Memorial Stadium, 23,000. Yeah. It's Raleigh, North Carolina, sellout 8,500. I just think their expectations were crazy. I just can't get past the Riverfront Coliseum, Riverfront Stadium thing.
Yeah, it's not. Florida was not their home base. Ohio kind of was, but Memphis certainly wasn't.
Was Schaefer Stadium not available? God.
Stadium.
That would have.
I've had the joy of seeing wrestling at Schaefer Stadium, so
I unfortunately have too. Okay.
Did you go to the King of the Ring?
Yes, kind of. I remember minimal of it, and I was like,
85.
Yes, I was in the. I was like I could not see the ring.
What were the Vegas odds of both of us getting out of there alive? That was the most violent, drunk crowd of any kind I have ever been around.
That's called, in Patriots season, that was called Sunday back then.
This exceeded Patriots games. I'm not even joking. It's exceeded Bruins games by like 10 times.
My old man had the season tickets from the 70s right through the 80s. On Monday night, they got banned from Monday night for 20 years.
Yeah, I remember that.
Okay, that's how bad it was. They had 140 arrests one time. Okay, it was.
Yeah,
they
said no more Monday night games.
That was pretty much par for the course at Schaefer. By the way, this is the old what is now Gillette, the stadium before that. So let's get to our argument here. The first disagreement we have is that obviously, if you have the concept was Flair was going to defend, as you said, 13 times, he has to lose somewhere. Even if it's just a short-term run, he has to lose somewhere because you would kill your babyface side dead if you have him roll through every band. He had a title match against Robert Gibson.
Yes.
He was going through your entire babyface roster of any significance, and he would be dropping them all in one 2-3 week stretch. Forget about it. You're done. So someone has to go. Our disagreement on who that person was, who that person should be.
Well, here's the thing. Let me start by saying, again, I wasn't even a smart mark in 86. I was just a magazine guy. And even when they announced that he was going to have 13 different opponents, I knew he was losing the title. And we had some access to the Bash schedule, and we figured definitely Dusty Rhodes in Atlanta. And it turned out to be Dusty Rhodes somewhere in North Carolina. But we got the guy right. Who should they have put it on if they were going to do it? I don't think Dusty was the answer because Dusty had to know that we're talking about Dusty here. Anyone but Dusty had to know that Dusty was near the end of his career at this point. That his career wasn't over, but you could see the sun going down.
I guess. But as you have made the argument before that a reason why Ronnie got the belt, when he got the belt, Ronnie Garvin, in 1987, was kind of just a tip of the hat, per se, for a fine career as a good soldier, per se, in the wrestling business. Now, I just think, unfortunately, Ronnie was late by about a year. Around this time, summer of 1986, Ron had a great feud going with Tully Blanchard, where they were just beating the hell out of each other. Ronnie was hot. His promos actually were almost respectable. He just had that kind of tough guy groove going on. And I'm looking at Johnson City, July 23rd, 1986, 6,000 sellout crowd. Johnson City those crowds are nuts. Okay, so you already know that's going to be a hot house. B, you have David Allen Coe, so that must be just amazing. And you have Ronnie's that's Ronnie's area, East Tennessee.
Yes.
I have heard more than enough Bo James stories to know that we are in Ronnie Garvin territory, the one man gang. And if you have Ronnie go over there, you give the whole feel to the any given day thing. So that encourages everybody else to go, well, nothing. Well, geez, they just lost in Johnson City. I mean, it gives that vibe. Plus, on the video, the crowd would go nuts.
I have always been a proponent of the on any given day thing, that wrestling promotions should have injected more of that into their booking. But go ahead. I'm sorry.
And this would have been a good spot to do it, because people like you. I mean, I wouldn't say we were smart. Well, I wasn't yet. But I mean, even then, you're looking at the thing like, okay, someone's got to win. I mean, you can't have him go through the entire babyface roster. He went through the Road Warriors, Magnum, Ronnie. Everybody. Both Rock and Rolls. You would have. So somebody had to go over. Perfect place for Ron. You put him over. That's a thank you for Ron. You're going to get the belt off him in a month or two, just like they did with Rhodes anyway. I mean, that was the spot. If you're going to give it to him, there's the spot to give it to him right there. And Ron was hot at that point.
I agree that having Garvin win the title in Johnson City would have been really, really cool for Johnson City. I don't know about, at this point, Crockett is running coast to coast, and I don't know how that would have run coast to coast. To me, if they were going to put the belt right back on Ric Flair 3 weeks later, which they did, Dusty was a poor choice. I would have gone with Magnum T.A. It would have been a little bit complicated with Magnum T.A. winning the NWA title in the middle of a U.S. Championship Series with Nikita. Like that, could have gotten like a Bill Watts level complicated. But I think you could have navigated through it and made it even more interesting. And plus, like I said, you're giving Magnum the rub that, he's a former world champion now. If you were going, and it's funny, if you were going to go long term, meaning maybe a year, maybe a little less than a year, which I kind of think they should have done, because Ric Flair had been on WTBS as world champion for 5 years. It was time for something new. I would have put the belt on Dusty if we were going long term, but that's not what they did. And I think Dusty would have had a cool 1 year run as NWA champion. You could have had a big series against Nikita, the rematches with Flair, Dusty versus Tully. I think you could have put in as a world title match. You know who was really big in 1986, and they completely blew his push, was Big Bubba Rogers. They had him over like crazy, and then suddenly they had him doing jobs in six-mans. But I'm not joking when I say if you would have given me the book, I would have had Dusty keep the title, and my Starrcade 86 would have been Dusty Rhodes against Big Bubba Rogers.
See, I basically right before they started and I have to ask you more about the best of seven series, but I pretty much had Magnum marked down as the guy, because this seemed like a perfect trial balloon for Magnum right here. See how it was going. If it went badly early, have a quick, get him out quick. But see if you can stretch it out a little bit and see, just as a feel out. You've got to get a mulligan on it, because again, it was a 13 guy. Yeah. But then they started the bizarre best of seven. I mean, it was great and it was interesting, but it seemed to tie up Magnum, because Magnum seemed right on the cusp of making the leap to the main event guy, top of the card, and then you tie him down in the second tier again right after the magnificent, Tully Blanchard feud with that great match. I mean, you figured this was a spot that he springboard goes right to Flair, but then you bog him down here. Why?
Well, you know what? I think what they did with Magnum, what they had on paper, was absolutely brilliant. And Nikita was one of Flair's biggest challengers in 1985. Flair finally beats him, and they put Nikita in a series against Magnum T.A. Now, a lot of people forget this. We have Magnum and Nikita in the best of seven in the Great American Bash. This is summer of '86. Nikita versus Magnum was started at the house shows in like January or February. Like, that feud had already been going on for months when they finally did the angle on TV. Now let's talk about that angle. They tell us that the The week before, they say, we're having Magnum T.A. versus Nikita Koloff for the United States title on TV next week. So obviously, everyone is very excited to see this match. Wow, that's a main event. Then they announced, no, we're not having the match because something happened. And they have the press conference where they're supposed to be signing the title, the contract for the title match, and the Koloffs are all dressed in white suits, which cracked me up. Nikita Vice. Yeah. And Nikita insults Magnum's mother, who is inexplicably in this press conference, and the Koloffs beat the crap out of Magnum T.A. Magnum jumps the table after Nikita. Ivan gets involved. Magnum gets clotheslined. So already Magnum's had a bad day. Then Bob Geigel flies out to give Magnum an official reprimand for starting the fight at the press conference. Think about all the shenanigans that go on in pro wrestling. And this is the thing Bob Geigel gets on the plane for. It's crazy. So Magnum's already, having a tough time. He just got his ass kicked. Now he's got Bob Geigel yelling at him. And he gives him the official reprimand. Magnum's like, geez, come on. It's my mom we're talking about here. And Geigel sasses him. He doesn't say, hey, I understand it's your mom, but you got to kind of behave out there. He puts his finger in Magnum's face, don't do it again or whatever he said. And Magnum punches this old man wearing glasses flush in the face. It was hilarious. And it made no sense, which made it great. It's pro wrestling.
Bob must have been thrilled. He was, it must have been like, it's like the old days again.
It looks like Magnum hit him hard, too.
He probably told him to hit him hard. He goes, I get it.
I know.
Make sure you let me have it, because the old Bob can throw him. First,
Bob,
the thing with
Bob gets a lot of flack because Central States was so bad. This guy was a goddamn U.S. Marine and a legit, amateur wrestler. Bob would beat the shit out of you.
Oh, no, Bob is a bad man. Oh, make no mistake about it. The criticisms of Bob aren't on Bob's toughness, so they shouldn't be. Bob's a bad man, and he threw as good, from what everyone who saw him said, he threw as good a punch as there ever was. So,
and I'm sure, like you said, I'm sure he told Magnum, hit me hard. Magnum hit him hard.
I have no question about it. So he hits him hard. So the mother's there. What was Tommy Rich helping out behind the scenes? I got to tell you what she needs. Get involved, your mama. What was that about? That was because that was an old Memphis trick. They get Tommy's mother involved.
That was bad. But anyway, Bob's now you just hit me in the face. Now I'm mad. I'm the NWA president. He decides that he's going to strip Magnum of the United States title. Now, okay, that makes sense. But wait, the U.S. title is now going to be resolved between the guy who's unfit to hold the U.S. title, Magnum T.A., and Nikita Koloff in a best-of-7 series. I mean, it sounds good, just the way we got there made no sense.
And the way they did it made no sense, because the first 3 matches were...
Oh, I love that.
Oh, that was dumb.
I love that bit of booking.
You knew damn well that after he lost, was it a sweep? Oh, you knew that wasn't going to happen. You knew it was coming next, that they were going to, come right back. This was right after I tell you where Dusty got this idea. This was right after the Kansas City, in the World Series, Kansas City against St. Louis, when Kansas City came back from 3 games down. That's exactly what Dusty was thinking. So,
and I thought it was a great idea. We were at the first bash in Philadelphia, and everyone was just shocked when Magnum lost the first match. And then you're watching TV, and it's like, okay, he's down 2-0, he's down 3-0, and that's when I figured out, okay, this is going to be 3-3 pretty soon. And they swerved me when Magnum lost the 7th match. Absolutely great match.
I guess, but second you drop the first 2, baby. Second you drop the first 3, you know what the next 3 are going to be. Like you just said, the next. So you basically kill your next 3 matches. That's a perfect spot to kind of mix it back and forth.
I saw they broadcast match number 6 on TV, and I mean the crowd was crazy. There was enough heat to melt a chocolate bar. I mean, whatever, it worked. The fans were thrilled.
That was the height. I don't know if you were ever going to get Magnum any better than that. That was the spot you move him. I thought there's where you get him to, because like you said, he was hot then. And after this, he really didn't seem the same.
No, and well, part of it, I mean, let's face it, he had the car accident. We're talking August 1986 when he lost the 7th match. In October 86, he had the car accident. But now, I've said this on the show before. What they were going to do was Starrcade 86 was going to be Magnum T.A. and Nikita Koloff in an I Quit Cage match where Magnum was going to regain the United States title. And I can't help but think that had they gotten to that part of the story, Magnum would have been red hot, and I know his next move was going to be a feud with Ric Flair.
See, I felt it differently. I felt when he lost that 7th match, there was like a vibe off him that was different. Even immediately, I mean, not even getting to the accident, just immediately something felt different. The whole thing felt weird to me because he really did. Right before that whole series started, right after Starrcade, he felt like the guy. He was like, okay, this is like the man.
Think about this. He gets to Starrcade. He has that match with Nikita Koloff. It would have been similar to the year before against Tully Blanchard, where he came out of that match, winning the United States title, finally winning the feud from Tully, which had been going on for a long time. I think that would have been a huge win for him.
I just think if you run that same thing again, he has another feud over the same belt again. You're taking a great gamble there. I think they should have been striking when the iron's hot, and here's where he should have got his title, right here. And then you could have seen how it worked. You would have had a reset if it didn't work for any number of reasons.
Magnum had not had a run against Flair since spring 1985. So doing that early 87, I think would have been fresh again.
Also, that's true, but they also had this kind of Celtics-Lakers of the 80s thing. Like, all year long, they're playing everybody else, and the Celtics are dealing with Philly and New York, and the Lakers are dealing with Houston and Dallas, whoever. So they're going – but there's always kind of that thing, that we're going to end up together eventually. So there's always kind of an acknowledgement between the two. And even when they didn't have a direct conflict, they had that. It was almost like a Cold War kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, I remember, was it 86 the Celtics played Houston and won the championship? Had to be, yeah.
And
I was so disappointed it wasn't the Lakers.
Oh, you don't even know. I wanted the Lakers so bad. I still, to this day, think they tanked it because they didn't want the beating they were going to take. Anyway.
I'm grabbing onto that theory. That's my theory now.
Yep.
I remember coming home.
They were going to take.
All day laughing, saying, I'm going to be cheering for the Lakers tonight. I was laughing about it. And I get home, turn on the TV, and the first thing I see is Magic whining about a call. I'm like, I can't go through with this.
Yep. So,
anyway, stick to wrestling!
Yeah, I know. That's how it felt with Flair and Magnum. That they weren't wrestling all the time, but there was a match here, but they were kind of always in each other's radar.
Yeah.
One would be there, the other be in the ring, and they kind of look at each other and have a quick transaction, So that was happening. So they were you had that going on too. I mean, they took it to a silly extent with Sabu and Taz, but it's kind of that thing.
No, I hear you. So let's talk about the going into the Great American Bash, Ric Flair's challengers. They did an angle. Now, here's where we are. Ole had just come back. He had just returned. He had been gone since January or December. And he came back and they started talking about, we're the Four Horsemen now, et cetera. So that just happened. Arn had talked about he, Tully, and Rick being the Three Horsemen, but he kind of dropped that informally. Right now, we have what I consider the real birth of the Four Horsemen. Ole comes back and they start calling themselves that. And he came back, Ric Flair and Road Warrior Hawk had an impromptu brawl on TV where Ole came back and Hawk got destroyed, and that's how they always built up a challenger, which was dumb, have the Four Horsemen all beat him up, and then they had the singles match against Flair. But that was one thing that I thought was a little bit weak coming in. They really didn't have that one guy to challenge Ric Flair. They tried to make it Road Warrior Hawk, and I think no matter what, Road Warrior Hawk at that point was viewed as a tag team guy, and no one thought he was winning the NWA title.
And pleased with the cheap win, okay? Rick wins on a stupid ref bump,
Of course.
Someone accidentally hits Tommy, rings the bell as Hawk has him pinned. Come on, give me a break.
This isn't really about the 86 bash, but I've always had this theory that if Road Warrior Hawk, right around this time in his career, said, Animal, you're my best friend, but I want to be a singles wrestler. Like, to me, Road Warrior Hawk was Lawrence Taylor and Animal was Harvey Martin. And to this day, I think if Hawk had gone out on his own, he would have been a major, major single star, like challenging Hogan at WrestleMania level single star. And Animal just didn't have that.
Well, maybe this is maybe that's your winner right then. It seems early though. I mean, you could have Hawk win at the beginning and then Flair win at the end or something like that.
I'm putting this together on the fly. What if you have Hawk win in Philadelphia and you just stop calling him Road Warrior? You just refer to him as Hawk, and he's your new superstar babyface. I see money in this.
Yeah, most definitely. I don't know how long term that could possibly last, but I mean, considering it's Hawk, you got to figure, But it's because you are right. He had definitely a star. He was like the Scott Steiner of the group, if you will.
And his interviews were great. People forget, like, his interviews would crack me up.
They weren't great, but they somehow worked because he had the persona. It was like an old Jack Benny sketch when he told a joke, and it was something that had to do with his cheapness. And someone made the comment that Jack has been writing that joke for 20 years. It's kind of the persona Hawk had built up over the years of that kind of, so all of his crazy pronouncements worked.
Yeah. And it was unique. He did something way different than not just any other babyface, any other wrestler. So there I am, 33 years beyond the point, campaigning for Hawk to have been a singles wrestler, which I think he would have gotten a lot more mileage out of. And I kind of think Animal, best case scenario, you need to find another Road Warrior to be in a tag team with.
You're talking about a guy who has in the past campaigned for Don Morocco to be the WWF champion 37 years ago. So I think we're fine. That's what we do.
Who we are, what we do.
Okay, the next challenger for Flair, RFK. Stop it with RFK Stadium. Well, are you serious? 6,300. Yeah, no wonder. They deserve that. With, Joe Eli, okay, whoever, and Delbert McClinton, who I actually do know and is very good. So we have NWA champion Flair against Rhodes. They draw 6,300 in that stadium. You must have an echo.
I mean, and that's the thing, that must have looked like, a penny rolling down the highway. It's, that's RFK obviously is a huge stadium, and that's for football. You got to remember the football field is giant, and now that's just ringside chairs. So, not good.
Now we go to the Liberty Bowl, which is even worse. July 4th, 1,900 were nice enough to come by.
Wow, I heard it was less than that.
It may have been. It's not the first time the number's been fudged. By the way, the famous picture of Dusty Magnum and I think it was Jerry Lawler. I believe it's in this match where they're all kind of walking off with I think Magnum's all bloodied up.
Yeah.
Okay, I think it's here.
Wait, I think that was from the Mid-South Coliseum, like October or November 1985. I think that's where that picture is from.
I'm going to assume you're right because, I'll concede right now because someone will correct me quickly anyway. In this one you had Dusty, Magnum, and Baby Doll over Cornette and the Midnight Express in the Steel Cage match with Rick and Nikita on the same card. That's the kind of cards we're talking about. And the Road Warriors over the Khrushchevs in a double chain match.
Yeah, and they're drawing 2,000 for that, and Lawler's out there against whoever he was a Fire and Flame. He was feuding against Summer of '86, and the wrestling fans can't come out to see Major League Wrestling. It's pretty crazy. But one thing I want to give Dusty credit for, he did have there were 13, 14 Great American Bashes, whatever number there was. And he managed to keep the cards different yet similar. In other words, he had his feuds, but he could mix the feuds up. Like he had Magnum. He and Magnum were kind of in a feud with the Midnight Express, but Magnum was definitely also in a feud with Nikita Koloff. Dusty, of course, was in a feud with everybody. And he managed to roll out 13 different cards.
Yeah, oh, no, absolutely. On a wrestling concept, this is magnificent. That's my frustration. My frustration is because it works so well but did not make money. That means they're not going to do it again, which they should be doing again. Because I think it's a fantastic idea. Well, they did it again, but they still did the same. They still did. Excuse me. They still made the same mistakes. So, but
quick
this
comment. I can't believe how much this promotion had cooled off. It was red hot in 1986. Make no mistake. Okay, I guess it wasn't hot enough to sell out a football stadium in Cincinnati, but it was red hot summer of 1986. And by the time summer of 1987 came around, I mean, they were hosed down with crushed ice. It all got very stale very quickly. Because
1986 was building off of a magnificent 1985, which is as a good a year in wrestling, JCP 1985, as you are ever going to see. Everything was
would argue 86.
No. Because if you watch everything that happened,
85 was great too.
The reason I say the difference is because everything that happened in 86 is a result of 85. Is a result of the people who were made, and I mean, Magnum was made in 85.
Yeah, he was. He definitely was. As soon as he got on, even before they got on TBS, they had Magnum as the hot new star in Mid-Atlantic.
Tully was a star, but he needed help. Tully was a single star in 1985. Yes. Okay, all these things were coming. They brought in the rock and rolls, and they brought in the Midnights, and they got them over. Okay, so all this stuff started paying residuals in 1986, and they didn't build off of it because of dumb stuff like this. Because this is wonderful wrestling here, and there's no reason this shouldn't have worked perfectly. But because they're in places where they didn't make the groundwork ahead of time, they're picking an RFK. I mean, stop it. Liberty Bowl, Memorial Stadium. Okay, I understand that, but it's that you see, Memorial Stadium, 23,000. If you were smarter where they put these and how they did it business-wise, and get rid of the stupid music, you would have had a much better, this would have made money, and this can make money.
Here's what happened, okay? I just kind of not figured this out, but hashed it out. They had the 1985 Great American Bash in Charlotte, and it drew like 30,000 people, and they had a music act, I forget who, and, obviously that's just wildly successful, and they did it on top with Ric Flair against Nikita Koloff, who wasn't even a wrestler a year ago. He wasn't even a concept. Nikita Koloff didn't exist.
Another one.
So Dusty says to himself, what's that?
Another one who was made in 85.
Yeah. Early 85. I mean, a year ago, this guy was Scott Simpson, still in wrestling school. So Dusty says to himself, okay, why do I need to just do this once? I can do this every night in the summer, and we'll all make a fortune. And he just didn't realize that the product was not as popular in Cincinnati as it was in Charlotte, as it was in Greensboro, etc.
Do you think one person went to any of these shows to see the musical act?
I can't imagine, because you know what? If you're into the music act and you're not into wrestling, you're not going. So
then you waste the money.
You have to be into both.
Then you waste the money. That money could have been going into the product, could have been going to the boys. I mean, they must have hated these guys.
I'm sure knowing the wrestlers, I'm sure they did. The wrestlers present everyone for everything.
They're probably looking at it the exact same way I just said it, which is that's our money. There's nobody here to see those guys, and they're right. Okay, so you have Flair in the in front of 1,900 people at the Liberty Bowl over Nikoloff. And next up, okay, this is a fun one. This was July 5th, Charlotte, Memorial Stadium, 23,000. This shows how much confidence they had in this angle, which was Ric Flair against Ricky Morton. This was a nifty little piece of business they did in the middle of the year. This wasn't long term, but it was fun.
It was. They did the angle where Ricky Morton, he's not small, he's tiny. I mean, the girls loved him, and it worked, but no one can imagine Ricky Morton winning the NWA title from Ric Flair. But they did a little bit of business on TV where Rick is just condescending towards Ricky Morton, and Morton just takes Ric Flair's sunglasses off, drops them, and stomps on them. I thought that was hilarious. That was one of the greatest angles ever. It was because of the simplicity of it.
Here's the beauty of this is that this is why this was fun, and this was kudos to Dusty here. Because again, I am not complaining about the wrestling. The wrestling's fantastic here. I just wish I could have seen more of it. But the beauty of this angle was because if you just put you got to do it because that was the whole angle that 13 different people. So you got to roll out Morton, but no one's gonna go. So you got to do something because as you said, no one takes that seriously. So they come up with this 50-bit, starting with what you're talking about, and then the Horsemen flip out. Go into the back and rub Ricky's face against the concrete.
Afterwards, that's right.
Afterwards, Ricky gets the Harley Race sandpaper number done in his face that they did to Ricky Steamboat in '78. And he comes out all cut up and everything with the mask on, and it was fantastic.
Yeah, because they broke his nose in a separate angle.
Yep. So they had it was well done. This, and again, it worked because you have 23,000 people, and there were other big matches here, but that's your main. And this was a big deal in the show for you're right. This would not have lasted long, but for this concept,
the Flair Morton matches were among the greatest of all time.
Yeah, and in this concept, it worked perfectly.
Yeah, exactly. It was North Carolina where the Rock and Roll Express were popular. I think I've said this here before. I mean, if you go back to some of the old worldwide wrestlings where they were doing TV at arenas. And, all of a sudden, ELO's Rock and Roll is King would start to play. And the girls erupted. It sounded like the Beatles at Chase Stadium, just screaming at Ricky and Robert. They were so over.
They were so over that there was a backlash eventually. That's how crazy over they were, that you had like a pushback from a certain fan base in North Carolina who didn't like them. I mean, that's how wildly over they were. And this angle clearly worked because the next night, what was it? You got the next 2 nights later. It is the next night. You have Ricky again with Ric Flair in the Texas Death Match in a matinee in Nashville, North Carolina.
Okay, so we finally got into the weekend, and that's another point I wanted to make. You run wrestling outdoors on a Saturday night in the middle of the summer and you've got a good product. Okay, you're probably going to draw a crowd. If you're out there on a Tuesday night in the middle of the summer,
Yeah, and okay, so you're at Riverfront Stadium, July. They clearly knew this wasn't a big deal because you have Flair against Road Warrior Animal. And please, Animal can't put him over. Animal's not a singles guy. He can't take a single loss to the champ. I mean, come on, really? That's
this is a stadium show, so you're putting Ric Flair out there against a guy who is not going to win.
Yeah, but you're going to Riverfront Stadium and the upfront money is you have upfront 1,000 ticket sales or something stupid. And, all of a sudden at the last second you're like, yeah, Animal, you're going. So I'm sure that may have been a last second decision. They may have been saving that. So we go to Charleston, West Virginia, and you again have Flair against Morton. I wonder if that one was supposed to be Flair and Morton too, and they just said screw it.
No, I'm sure back then you knew what all of the matches were coming in. We go right back to Morton again in Civic Center, which they don't say what the numbers were, and we have another Morton match in Roanoke. I bet these all did well with Ricky in a steel cage match. Yeah, they must have done well because they would have changed it at some point. But in Roanoke, sure.
Yeah, in Roanoke,
that is a Mid-Atlantic stronghold.
I mean, Ricky was probably your best draw. In this, in this series.
You know what? The more I think about it, you're right, because the girls came out. They wanted to see the Rock and Roll Express.
Yeah, because, they used him over and over again here. I forgot how much they used him in this series. So now you have the ridiculous Gator Bowl show. 10,000. That must have been awful. Dusty beats Flair by disqualification. There's your precursor. Good Lord. At least, At least let Rick go off. At least let Rick pin you clean there. Because then when you come back the next time, you're like, okay, and then you kind of get the win there.
Where was this again?
This was in the Gator Bowl.
Okay, so it's Florida. Dusty's not going to let Flair go over clean.
Oh, fair enough. I didn't even think of that. It's even Jacksonville, the one time a month they were there. Okay, that's even worse. Jacksonville. They're not even Miami. In Miami, I could buy that.
No,
If they
Dusty
did, like,
was
you know,
big
the
in
Orange
Jacksonville.
Bowl.
Supposedly, the Gator Bowl is like an absolute dump in the worst
Oh, it's
part of
awful.
the city. Just as an FYI.
Oh, it's awful. Okay, so at the Richmond Coliseum, perfect booking. You bring in Wahoo for Flair. I bet that killed. Wahoo's huge in Richmond.
I agree. That is a good booking decision. Wahoo is a legend in Richmond.
You put that.
And you know what?
Atlanta?
It was smart that they brought him in.
Yeah.
Like, he wasn't a top guy. He had some main events in tag teams with Dusty, but he was in 1986. I'm not even saying this is an insult. Wahoo was older. He had to be close to 50, but he was still a good complimentary piece.
And with the style that Wahoo's style was similar to Valentine and John, both of them actually, which means they could go forever. I mean, it was just a slow, sick, physical style. You can, it's painful. I mean, you can do that. How long did Abdullah do styles like that or something like, So that style can be done until you're older. And again, Wahoo's just crazy over Virginia. So you could have done that, or like Fayetteville, North Carolina. That would have been a good spot for it too. So we go up next, and we are in Cumberland County Memorial Arena, Fayetteville. Ric Flair against Rick Gibson. And if you are unsure about how over the Rock and Roll Express are in North Carolina, Ric Flair against Gibson in the main event. No chance of a title change. You might as well just make this a non-main event and just had Gibson go over a non-title match, because there is no chance there's a title change here. In the Cumberland County Arena, sell out.
Oh, you know what? Not taking anything away from Gibson, what was the rest of the card?
True. We have to briefly bring this part up, but this was every card though. The rest of the card was Ron Garvin defeated the national heavyweight champion Tully Blanchard, the non-title. Shut up with the non-title tape fist match.
Yeah, that's ridiculous.
That's lame. So, but I mean, that was a hot feud. I loved that feud. That was just a physical, nasty. I mean, like when you watch that on TV, you could hear that.
Two quick things. Number one, they had a match on Worldwide Wrestling, I want to say April of 1986. It's one of my favorite matches of all time. It went the whole hour. Dusty was doing commentary, and Dusty totally added to the match. He wasn't putting himself over. He was putting the match over, and he was doing a great job. And you got to go back. I mean, it's just one of my favorite memories, because I remember getting home at midnight just in time to see Worldwide Wrestling. I went out of my way on a Saturday night to get home and watch this. And they just have this phenomenal match. It was just a great time in my life.
Absolutely. These two were incapable of having a bad match. They had great. I wish they made this longer. They were fantastic together. And Ron, I mean, that Tully Ron, that equaled, I think, like 27 David Crockett uhs, which is the noise that he made whenever Flair or Ronnie hit somebody with one of those chops or Wahoo. I mean, you could hear them beat the crap out of each other. And these were like the Flair matches, except I thought these were better.
They might have been. You know what? After me, spending at least a couple of shows saying I thought they never should have put the NWA title on Ronnie Garvin, let me show him some love. To this day, I think he should have come out of that feud with the National Heavyweight Championship.
Oh, absolutely. At least to see what happens. I mean, something different.
I mean, what did they do with it? They left it on Tully, and then they had the first blood match with Dusty at Starrcade. I mean, at this point, I don't want to talk out of both sides of my mouth. It kind of was a junk title, but it would have meant more putting it on Ronnie Garvin than putting it on. Who got it after Tully? Dusty?
Yeah.
All right, so right there. No, you know what? They put it on Wahoo McDaniel, and that's right. They put it on Wahoo, and then they immediately merged the title with Nikita Koloff's U.S. title, so they got rid of it.
Yep.
And I think it would have been smarter to just put it on Ronnie Garvin and do that.
Yeah, and there should have been title changes everywhere here, because it completely. You want a hot shot to your heart's delight. It's like when you put the Road Warriors into the what was that the double cage match, where the submission or submit, which is the same thing. I don't know why they had to do it. Why am I drawing a blank on the stupid match?
The War Games?
Well, thank you. Oh my God, really? What's wrong with me? Like in the War Games where you put the Warriors in there, they're terrible in any other match, but you put them in there, it's fine because they could kick, stomp, throw people around, and it works completely within the context of the match. You could have had title changes everywhere here, and it would have made complete sense because you gave your champions an impossible task.
Okay, I can see that. The other side of it is, I mean, wrestling. This was a tough time. I don't want to say tough time for wrestling. It was a tough time to book wrestling because so much was changing, and the wrestling business really truly was in uncharted territory. It used to be that, okay, this heel's stale. I'm going to send him to Mid-South. I'm going to get this guy from World Class or whatever, and you couldn't do that anymore. This was your crew, for better or worse. These are your guys. You're stuck with them. You have to keep everything fresh. So the fans at home already have so much to keep up with. The WWF has all their wrestlers, a roster of like 40 or 50 stars. The NWA has their 30 or 40 guys. So it's just hard to keep up with all the wrestlers and all of the titles. And I guess that was my point to begin with. You've already got so many championships. Now, if you start having them change hands left and right, you could be confusing the more casual viewer at home.
Maybe, but you also could have given some love to some of these guys who don't usually get it, as you just said, Ronnie Garvin. Ronnie Garvin's a guy. Here's a place where you could like test balloon some stuff, like to see if it works. If the guy doesn't carry the belt, fine. See, this would have been a perfect spot to give Ronnie the world title, because if it didn't work, if it was a disaster, then you can get it right off him and just say, you know what, was one of those things. He had 13 matches in a row. He was going to drop one. It had to happen. So, and any given, whatever. So that was a perfect spot to do it. That's why I think you should have had more movement there. And then you could have settled it back down again. Because you can't, like the time when Mid-South Hotshot had 3 belts in one show. You can't do that. You can't do that on a regular basis because you'll just, the relevance will. It's, back in boxing, you used to have 8 championships and everyone knew what they were. I have no idea what a third, a half, a quarter of the championships are now. And they lost their value.
Oh, and, I could go on all day about the NWA and Dusty just having too many belts. And they would, in 86, they probably had too many belts. I mean, having the United States title and the national title was redundant to say the least, and by the time they fixed it, they had that going on for a year. I could see having a world title, a U.S. title, and a television title, but that's it. And and tag team titles too. But that's
who was the national title when they kind of merged? Who's the champion?
Wahoo.
He would have been the no. I mean, when they originally when the national title first appeared on JCP.
Ronnie Garvin.
So it was Ronnie Garvin. Who would have been the U.S. champion at that time? Would have been Magnum?
U.S. champion was Magnum.
Okay, shoot, you can't do that. So if you had
he just won it from Wahoo, I would have 6 weeks earlier.
Yeah, I would have gotten a belt off of Ronnie, put on a heel, and have some tournament between him and Magnum right there. There's your best of 7 right there.
Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah, I mean, just get it right off him, and then you can, because that's what they did was they brought in Georgia. They had the national championship and the tag team championships, which I don't think the Andersons ever lost.
No, they did not. The national tag team titles, when Ole was hurt after Starrcade 85, they were simply dropped. And which, you know what? Sometimes that's the way to do it. Just have everyone forget about it.
Yeah, cut your losses. So Greensboro, North Carolina, you know what? I'll give Dusty credit for having the guts to do it in Greensboro. 15,000 sellout, Dusty with an inside cradle in a steel cage match at 21:04. I can still hear, who is the famous Greensboro announcer, the big guy there?
I remember. I know what he looks like. I don't know his name.
He had the glass. I'm waiting for Lou to throw something on here, but they had the announcer come out, ladies and gentlemen, and Dusty's yelling.
And within seconds, Lou types in Tom Miller.
Sweet Lou's the man. Tom Miller, the ladies and gentlemen thing. It was a cool moment, but I mean, it was. In retrospect, Dusty didn't need it. Dusty didn't need a title. The reason you use Dusty now is to elevate titles you have that aren't elevated. Like if you have the national title and you need to give that a boost, then you bring Dusty in, and that kind of elevates it by having Dusty hold it.
You know what though? I mean, one thing I know is true. None of us, not you, not me, not anyone listening, can objectively evaluate themselves. It's impossible. And Dusty is clearly one of us when it comes to that. And I'm sure he felt like, he's the number one guy. He's the number one baby face right now and for as long as he can see. And he probably just felt like his number one baby face, who happened to be him, needed that shot in the arm.
See, people often make the mistake of saying someone has a big ego, but the ego is often a mask for insecurity, and I think that's exactly what you're looking at here. Dusty didn't need a belt. As he made he made the comment when he went to WWF, and he said, he gave me the polka dots, and my thing was, I'm getting it over, because I'm Dusty Rhodes. That's Dusty Rhodes. When he's sitting there worried about the fact that he needs a belt to justify his position, then Dusty ain't right. Dusty's not thinking straight then. Then he's not evaluating himself correctly. And that's when the bookies start having problems, and you got the result of the disastrous 87.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about this before. I mean, Dusty had an absolutely brilliant solution to suddenly losing Magnum T.A., and that was turning Nikita Koloff. And to me, that was one of the best booking jobs of all time, where you're like, wow, Dusty just pulled that. He had an emergency, and he figured out a phenomenal solution. And yes, Nikita was eventually going to be turned. That was on the table. That was going to happen. But the way Dusty made it work, I mean, it was just brilliant.
That's how Dusty could be all the time. The problem was that he was like that less and less as we got later on. In 85, he did no wrong. I mean, it was dazzling. And even David Crockett and, even they were great. I mean, everybody was great in 85. It was incredible. Yeah. And please explain this to me. Okay, here's the last match. You're coming to Atlanta. Atlanta's Dusty Rhodes territory. First of all, here's where Dusty should have won. It's Fulton County.
I don't know if Atlanta was really Dusty territory at this point.
Dusty thought
there was
Dusty
a time. There was a time where Dusty would not appear live at the television studio, and granted, only about 100 fans were there because he was getting booed out of the building. He was doing pre-recorded interviews, and my understanding is that Atlanta was kind of Ric Flair got a lot of cheers in Atlanta when he was against Dusty.
Ric Flair got a lot of cheers everywhere. I mean, but he got more cheers in He got more cheers in Greensboro, North Carolina. It almost feels like that's a lot like a Dusty, like a little kind of middle finger to the Greensboro crowd for giving him for so many years. Because remember when they split the main events in Starrcade 85, where did Dusty defend the title against Flair?
That match was in it was in Atlanta, right?
That was Atlanta, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, I wonder why. Because Dusty was worried about having that match probably in Greensboro. At least Dusty thought he was a bigger star in Atlanta. At least. Even Dusty couldn't deny that he is not a bigger star in Greensboro. So the only thing that makes sense, because having Dusty win in Fulton County, which let's put it this way, having Dusty win in Fulton County would make more of a difference to the crowd than it would in Greensboro, who probably left that stadium livid.
I don't know. I mean, I've seen people go nuts. Everyone wants to see a title change. I mean, I was in Boston when Greg Valentine, we had no idea Greg Valentine had won the Intercontinental title. And we're in Boston, and he's got the belt under the robe. And as he's untying the robe, they announce a new Intercontinental Champion, Greg Valentine. And we see him with the belt. And Valentine is a decided heel. And the Boston Garden went nuts because, hey, title change. Everyone loved it.
Well, again, a tip-off to this is they had to fill the ring.
Oh, yeah.
Just to make sure. But there is no logical reason for Dusty because no matter what, Greensboro is the beating heart of Ric Flair country. I mean, that is ground zero. That is like for Ric Flair's popularity base. It starts and ends in Greensboro, North Carolina. So that for Dust to win there, that has to be just a Dust spiteful kind of dinks. Because the logical move here is to have Rick win there and then have Dusty take him finally beat Rick in the last match at Fulton County.
I mean, you're right, and think about this. Of course, they had the ring fill up with the baby faces. It's what they did, But think about it, what the message they're sending. Hey, Ricky Morton approves of this. Why don't you? Magnum T.A. approves of this. Why don't you? What's wrong with you? You know?
Exactly. That's exactly what they're doing. That's exactly why they're putting those guys in there. It's like, we're right, you're wrong. All the people you love Dusty, and you don't. So that means there's something wrong with you, which is always the best attitude to have when you're booking.
One last thing I want to share about the 86 Bash, because unfortunately we're out of time. This is always the fastest hour of my week. They had a match in Philadelphia between Wahoo McDaniel and Jim Garvin, and it was a bloody match. And after the match, I didn't know what was going on, but there was a long delay. It was like 30 or 40 minutes. And I didn't know what was going on. No one did. And the state athletic commissioner was trying to get the show shut down. I mean, literally, he was like, this show's over. And of course, I read about this in the Observer like 6 months later, but they had to beg him not to shut the show down. And they said, no more blood all night. And again, we're, driving home, we're like, wow, there's no blood in any of the later matches. What happened? And well, like I said, 6 months later, I learned what happened. But Sean, thank you for taking the time. Your input is always appreciated, sir.
Hold on. Explain what happened.
Oh, wait a minute.
You can't leave the people like that.
Like what?
The deal, the rumor about WWF paying off the commissioner.
I hadn't heard that. I kind of don't believe it's true.
You don't think so?
I think J.J. Binns was, he brought his family out to this thing. They said it was going to be, a family-friendly atmosphere. And then Wahoo, while doing a blade job, I read, got the blade stuck in his forehead. And as a result, he looked like, Carrie in the prom scene. And this guy was legitimately outraged. I'm not saying the WWF would be above something like that, but think about this. If they had actually paid him off to shut down the show, he would have shut down the show.
Well, he was in the Spectrum show in June of '86, and during the show, they had Junkyard Dog and Don Morocco in a bloodbath in the dog collar match too. So.
Okay, you know what? You're right. I have seen that match on tape. It could have been, like I said, this show was promoted as good old family fun, and this is what happens when you give one guy too much power. State athletic commissions suck. But anyway, Sean, thank you again. I want to thank my friend Lou Kippelman, the producer of this show, for everything he does. And this has been a production of the Arcadian Vanguard Podcast Network. We'll see you next week.